Babysitting Stripe by Emmlire. It was a nice Saturday morning in the small town of South Park. The snow had begun to melt, and the flowers were popping up randomly on the trees and in the grass. Tweek was strolling down the sidewalk on his way to his boyfriend's house. The same path he always did when going to his boyfriend's house. But this morning was different. He wasn't going over to hang out or to watch Red Racer with Craig. Oh no, this time Craig had asked him to do a favor. It happened a few days ago when his aunt announced she was getting married. Because his aunt was close family, Craig's parents were making him attend the wedding. They would only be gone one day, leaving Saturday morning and being home by Sunday evening. The only problem was, he had no one to look after Stripe, and asked Tweek if he would mind taking care of him in his absence. At the time, Tweek without hesitation agreed, knowing full well he could watch Stripe for a day. Stripe was their baby. The guinea pig was just as much his responsibility as his cholo-wearing boyfriend. Last night, he got everything ready for the new arrival. He cleared off his desk where Stripe's cage would go, and he picked up and vacuumed every inch of his room so he could play with the fuzzy rodent without him eating anything toxic or that might cause him to choke. Although the blonde had jumped at the opportunity to show Craig he was responsible, he was now having second thoughts. What was he thinking? He could barely keep a goldfish alive for a couple of days. How was he supposed to take care of something 3 times that size? Oh God, he should have Googled tips on taking care of guinea pigs. Craig's gonna kill me for sure if anything happens to Stripe. Tweek growled as his fingers clawed at his inappropriately buttoned shirt. He was a nervous wreck thinking about all the things that could go wrong. What if Stripe got sick? What was he supposed to do? I'm not ready for the responsibility. Without realizing where he was standing on Craig's front porch with the door open to reveal the emotionless face of his boyfriend staring back at him. Oh! Tweek squeaked, holding on to the front of his shirt for security, or possibly out of embarrassment. It's never hard to know when you're here, Tweek. Craig commented, his voice holding no amount of indifference. Thanks for watching Stripe for me while I'm gone. He continued motioning the twitchy boy to enter the house. As Craig kept talking, Tweek was only somewhat listening. He was sweating a nervous sweat, and his body went stiff when he saw the innocent little guinea pig staring back at him with those giant black eyes. Stripe and Craig were putting all their faith and trust in him. This was too much pressure! Snapping out of his delusions, Tweek listened more carefully to the instructions Craig was giving him about Stripe, what he liked and what he disliked. Though Tweek had knowledge of this since they played with Stripe every day after school. It was the other things that worried him, like what if he didn't feed him enough and he starves? What if he fed him too much and he explodes? When Craig handed him the cage, it took all of Tweek's strength to stop his shakes from rattling it and scaring the little creature inside. Are you sure he wouldn't be better off staying here? The nervous boy asked, giving Craig a chance to change his mind. I'm sure, he said, sticking his finger through the cage to pet the guinea pig. He'd be fine for himself by a day, but he would get lonely. Isn't that right, Stripe? The guinea pig turned away and tucked himself into one of the corners of the cage. Look, if anything happens or you have any questions, you can always call or text me. Craig reassured his nervous love. Yeah, but... Tweek was silenced by Craig putting a hand over the boy's mouth. No buts. You're a great daddy, okay? Craig smiled at Tweek, and the blonde gave a smile of his own. Craig began to lean and get closer as their noses brushed up against each other. Craig, have you finished packing, sweetheart? His mother called as she entered the living room. The 2 boys withdrew from each other. Thankfully, his mother seemed to have missed the almost kiss. Yeah, Mom, Craig replied, his face returning to its deadpan status. Then go put your bags in the car. We're about to leave, Miss Tucker instructed her son. Rolling his eyes, he gave Tweek one last reassuring smile before stomping upstairs. Miss Tucker came up to Tweek and placed a kind hand on his shoulder. Thank you so much for watching Stripe, Tweek. Craig was so worried to leave him alone. Tweek's hands gripped the handle of the cage tighter, trying his hardest not to shake the cage. No problem, he stammered. Everyone had such great confidence in him. What happens if he let them down? At his best attempt to swallow his anxiety, he tucked the food and Stripe's favorite toy that Craig had brought down under his arm. With that, the twitchy blonde said his goodbyes and left with his new companion. It took Tweek much longer to return to his house, not because the cage was heavy, No, Tweek was so scared that Stripe might jump out or something might happen to him on the walk over. The usual 5-minute walk took twice that, but both of them made it home safely. Tweek entered his room. "Welcome home, Stripe!" He welcomed the fuzzy creature in the cage, who gave a tiny noise of what Tweek hoped was approval. The blonde gave Stripe a small tour of his room before gently setting the cage down on his spotless desk. "What do you want to do first?" he asked, as though he was expecting the guinea pig to respond. Searching around the room, his eyes landed on Stripe's hollowed-out ball that he loves to play in. "Want to play with your ball?" Tweek asked with a smile, trying to get the guinea pig out of the corner, or at least acknowledge his presence. To no avail. Stripe just sat there and didn't move. Tweek was a little discouraged that Stripe didn't seem happy being here. "Maybe you're just tired." With that, Tweek gave Stripe his privacy and let him be for a while. He moved his laptop onto his bed, but lay at an angle to make sure he could see Stripe at all times. It was now 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and Stripe still hadn't moved an inch. Tweek tried giving him treats and tried to pick him up, but Stripe would just run to another part of the cage. He wondered if he should text Craig and ask him. No, he didn't want to bother Craig since he only had the guinea pig a few hours. Craig would never trust him again. But what if Stripe was really sick? He seemed fine before they left Craig's house. Tweek walked to the cage and stuck his finger through one of the slits to caress the fuzzy creature. "What is it? Are you homesick, little guy?" Tweek asked quietly before perking up with a warm smile. "Everything's gonna be okay. I might not be as cool as your daddy, but I can be fun." The blonde stuck his skinny arms through the opening of the cage and gave Stripe no choice but to come with him. Lifting the soft furry rodent from the cage, he curled Stripe to his chest and brought him over to the bed. Taking out his phone, Tweek laid Stripe beside him. "Look, Stripe, it's your daddy!" He had the phone pointed at Stripe that had a picture he took of Craig with his usual neutral expression. He could have at least smiled. They sat there, and Tweek told stories of every picture he had of Craig. There were ones before they started dating, and when they were playing with the other kids. While he was going down memory lane, he received a text message from Craig. "Hey, made it to my aunt's house. How's everything going?" Thinking of a great idea, Tweek picked up Stripe and put the guinea pig up to his cheek. "Say cheese!" He smiled before taking a picture with the unenthused guinea pig, looking the picture over before deeming it good enough. "This is so cute, Stripe! Craig's gonna love it!" he said as he was sending the picture to said boyfriend. They both lay on the bed, and Tweek told Stripe all his worries and problems. Stripe was such a good listener. He would make such cute noises any time Tweek would get excited about something. "You'd never judge me, right, Stripe?" Tweek's question was met with silence until a single buzz from his phone broke the silence. It was a message from Craig. "You two are adorable." Tweek showed Stripe the message with a small giggle. "He said we're adorable, Stripe." Though Tweek was trying to perk up the guinea pig, it didn't seem to be working. He could almost see sadness in the creature's eyes. There was no denying it. He missed his daddy. Though he was his daddy too, kids always tend to pick a favorite, and that just so happened to be Craig. Releasing a defeated sigh, he picked Stripe back up and put him back in his cage. "I'm gonna get something to eat. I'll be right back, then I'll call Craig," Tweek announced to the rodent with hurt in his voice. He tried so hard and he failed. Stripe hated him, and now Craig was going to hate him, and he let everyone down. Chapter 2. MIA Guinea Pig. Tweek was downstairs in his kitchen, making a sandwich, waiting for the coffee to finish brewing. Though his body was going through the motions, his mind was elsewhere. He didn't understand what he was doing wrong. He was doing the exact same things with Stripe that they do at Craig's house. Tweek ran his fingers through his knotted, thick blonde hair as a nervous tick. "What am I gonna tell Craig?" he wondered, resting his upper body on the countertop. "That Stripe hates me and is having a miserable time? That I can't even manage to take care of our little guinea baby for more than a few hours, let alone a day?" Tweek's chest was heavy with pressure and sadness at the thought of Stripe and his failures. Gulping down his freshly brewed coffee, the comforting taste and smell helped take away some of the pressure in his chest. However, it did not aid in his grief for his incompetence. Once Tweek was finished with his lunch, he inhaled a deep breath before climbing back up the stairs. Taking his time on each step, Tweek eventually reached the wooden door leading to his room, expecting to be greeted with silence since he was the only one home. But instead he could hear loud, rapid scratches on what sounded like metal. There was something angry in his room. A monster? Tweek backed away slowly from the door at the thought of a monster in his room. He wasn't going to stick around and become a monster's new chew toy. He was about ready to take off before it dawned on him. Stripe was still in there. Was he really going to run away and let a hungry monster eat his fur baby? He shook his head as if to erase the thought of Stripe becoming lunch for a monster. Stripe was his baby and his responsibility. If anything was going to hurt Stripe, they would have to go through him. Feeling his inner barbarian surface once more, Tweek crashed into his room with a warrior cry, ready to fight anything that opposed him, only to find there was no trace of a monster or any evidence there had ever been one in his room. Then, what were those scratching noises? Directing his attention towards the cage, he saw the fluffy creature on his hind legs with his two stubby front paws scratching at the cage. Confused by the actions of the once calm and sedentary guinea pig, the twitchy blonde walked over and opened the cage to let the creature out. Stripe became dead weight, allowing Tweek's trembling hands to pick him up. Tweek then placed the guinea pig on the floor of his room, and within seconds, Stripe began exploring the new territory. Stripe's attitude seemed to have changed just like that. He was no longer hiding or unresponsive. He was now running all over the place and occasionally would pop up and let out cute squeaks and squeals. Tweek couldn't help but give a couple of relieved chuckles as his anxiety immediately went down. Stripe was acting almost as spastic as he was. Tweek laid himself on the floor next to Stripe and began caressing the soft fur. You seem to be feeling better," Tweek said as he smiled down at the fuzzy critter, who curled himself into a ball, enjoying the attention from Tweek's hand. "Hey, would you like to play with your ball now?" the excited boy asked, bouncing up from the floor to retrieve the transparent, hollowed-out toy. He carefully positioned Stripe into the ball and closed it tight so he wouldn't fall out. Now that he was tucked in and ready to go, Tweek set the ball containing Stripe on the ground, and he was off. Stripe rolled all around the room, sometimes bouncing into walls and even rolled under Tweek's bed, only for him to emerge on the other side. Tweek supervised Stripe wherever he went, like a parent would their small child. He was having a fun time, simply watching Stripe enjoy himself and having a good time. Once Stripe was tuckered out from all the playing, Tweek laid him down for a nap, while the blonde was busy at work attempting to construct a maze playset out of cardboard for his furry companion. It took longer than he was expecting, with all the designs and with his hands not being steady enough to properly cut something on the first try. It was already dinner time, and the labyrinth was nowhere near completion. It was much harder than he originally thought, but it would be worth it. Stripe was going to have so much fun. Tweek cleaned up the rest of his mess and filled up Stripe's food dish just as Craig had directed him, before going to eat his own dinner. After dinner, Tweek put Stripe in his ball so he could run around to his heart's content, while focusing on finishing the maze. During his project, he received several texts from Craig. "Hey honey, how is everything going?" "Great! Stripe's playing with his ball and I'm building a maze for him." "That's cool. Glad neither of you are dead." Tweek was in too good a mood to care about Craig's sarcastic answer, and continued their conversation. Judging from his answers, Tweek could tell Craig was not in a good mood right now. Knowing all this, he still decided to ask, "How'd the wedding go?" "I give it a year." "Craig, that's not nice. You're supposed to be supportive of your aunt's happy occasion." "If they wanted happy, they wouldn't have invited me." "Oh, Craig." Tweek sighed, but smiled at his boyfriend through the phone. Before he could reply, he received another message from Craig. "It's late. I'm gonna go to bed. I'll text you in the morning. Night." Tweek wished his boyfriend a good night before putting the last finishing touches, and done! He finished his project. Approving of his work, he patted himself on the shoulder as he went over all the details. It had everything a guinea pig needed: walls, holes for him to climb through, and some treats laid all around the area. Spotting the ball that Stripe currently occupied, Tweek scooped him out of the ball and into the labyrinth. At first, he looked confused, trying to climb up the walls and fidgeting. However, once he found the first treat, then he was determined to search through the entire maze for more. He was soon scurrying all throughout the maze, making various squeals and popcorning. At times, he would overexhaust himself and need to rest until he was re-energized and playing again. As Stripe played, Tweek conversed in different conversations with the guinea pig and took pictures of him while he played. He couldn't wait to show these to Craig. Tweek and Stripe were having so much fun that they had lost track of time. According to Tweek's clock, it was 4:23 in the morning. Groaning in disappointment, Tweek picked the furry creature up. "It's time for bed, Stripe," he declared as he put him back in the cage. "We can play more tomorrow." With that, Tweek turned off the lights and tucked himself into bed before wishing the guinea pig good night and falling into a light sleep. Waking up bright and early, Tweek jumped out of bed to begin another day with Stripe. Good morning, Stripe! He pipped with a sweet smile as he scanned the confines of the cage. However, he couldn't seem to locate him. Thinking he was probably hiding, Tweek filled his empty food bowl, hoping it would bring him out of hiding. Nope, he wasn't coming out. Curious, the boy opened the cage and lifted the item inside. After double and triple checking the cage, it was apparent Stripe was not there. If he wasn't in the cage... Golly, where is he? Tweek cried and sharply pulled at his crazy morning hair. In full panic, Tweek destroyed his room looking for the absent critter. Under his bed, in his chest of drawers, in his desk, in his toy box. He was nowhere to be found. Come here, Stripe! Tweek tried to call out for him as his voice vibrated from his nervous shakes. His morning had just gotten worse when he was reminded of something important as he heard his phone buzz. It showed a message from Craig. Morning. We're heading back. Should be there in a few hours. After reading Craig's message, Tweek couldn't contain his shrieks of stress and fear. Craig was going to be there in a few hours to pick up Stripe, but he didn't know where Stripe was. Tweek checked all throughout the house to make sure all the windows and doors were closed, so there was no way he could have gone outside. Of course, Stripe's cage was also closed, but he got out. Wait, did he close it? Oh my god! Tweek shrieked while tugging at his shirt. He couldn't handle this right now. Craig was literally on his way to kill him unless he found Stripe. What if Stripe was lying there helpless and scared? What if he died because of him? What if Stripe really did hate him and purposely escaped so Craig would kill him? With Tweek out of the picture, he wouldn't have to share Craig with anyone else. Tweek screamed and began to hyperventilate from his own anxiety and the thoughts that guinea pigs were now devious psychopaths. This was not the right time to be freaking out. He needed to find Stripe, and he was going to find him if it took all day. For the next few hours, Tweek turned his house inside out looking for the mischievous critter, only to turn up empty with no signs of his furry face. That was it. Tweek gave up and fell into the carpeted stairs in the living room. Stripe wins! 2 solid knocks came from his front door. Tweek debated whether or not he should open it or pretend no one was home. He was leaning more towards the second option until a nasally flat voice followed behind those knocks called his name. Tweek. Covering his mouth with one of his shaking hands to keep himself quiet, Tweek's eyes darted back and forth, trying to think of a place to hide. However, when 2 more knocks came from the door, this time even louder, Tweek knew he had to answer the door. Slowly walking over to the door, he unlocked it and opened it for Craig. Hey dude, jeez, what happened here? Craig asked, referring to the living room that was now destroyed in the process of looking for Stripe. Thinking of a lie fast, Tweek badly replied, My parents are redecorating! Passing Tweek a strange look, but shrugging it off, Craig asked for what he had come for. Okay, where's Stripe? I'll take him home. Releasing a series of odd noises, Tweek pointed upstairs towards his room. Both boys climbed the stairs to the blonde kid's room. Tweek stayed a couple of feet behind Craig at all times, in case he needed a head start, though he and Craig knew he stood no chance. Entering Tweek's room, that happened to be just as messy as the living room, Craig walked over to Stripe's cage. Tweek stood there in chills, just waiting for the fireworks to come. After a couple of seconds of looking, Craig turned to Tweek with his unemotional face and asked, Tweek, where is Stripe? Though Craig didn't look intimidating, Tweek felt intimidated. Scooting ever so close, he pointed a finger somewhere in the cage. He's right in there. Where? Craig asked, taking another look in the cage. He's right there. Keep looking, Tweek repeated, backing up slowly towards the door. When Craig stood back up to his full height, Tweek squirmed under the taller boy's gaze. Tweek froze in horror, knowing this was how he died. I put him in his cage before I went to sleep. Tweek spoke softly, not looking into his boyfriend's eyes, for fear of what he might see. But I guess he wasn't playing because when I woke up this morning, he was gone. Disturbed by the uncomfortable silence, Tweek rushed to better explain himself. Guys, I looked everywhere, I promise. It's like he disappeared. There was still no answer from the Norette. All there was silence. Gradually peeking up from the ground, Tweek's heart pounded in his chest as he was about to look the devil in the eyes. However, Craig didn't seem the least bit angry. He simply sighed and said, Okay, let's look for him. He has to be here somewhere. Not expecting this response, Tweek pushed further. Aren't you upset I lost Stripe? Why did he ask that? Craig picked up some of the big scattered furniture of the room while answering. Nah, he always gets out of his cage. It's not a big deal. Tweek was stunned, but at the same time relieved. He was so happy that Craig wasn't angry at him. "So you're not gonna kill me and stuff my body in a freezer?" Tweek questioned, biting his lip in anticipation. Craig looked over to Tweek and smirked, bringing his arm to draw Tweek into a hug. Digging his nose into Tweek's unkempt blonde hair, he said in a gentle voice, "No." Tweek then returned the hug as all his worries disappeared. After a few minutes, they broke apart and started searching for their MIA guinea pig. After 2 long, grueling hours, they found the little fuzzy butt hiding under Tweek's bed, nibbling on one of the treats Tweek had left in the maze. I checked there like 1,000 times! Tweek squealed, yanking at his hair in frustration. He was about to have an aneurysm. Craig smiled as he lifted Stripe into the air. "Aw, look, Stripe, you threw Daddy into a panic attack," Craig stated, with no personality behind his voice. Tweek scolded as the two of them gathered the rest of Stripe's belongings. Once Stripe was found, and Craig had helped Tweek clean up the house, it was time for Craig and Stripe to return home. Before Tweek closed the door, Craig turned around with a genuine smile. "Tweek?" Hearing his name, Tweek's ears perked up to hear what his boyfriend had to say. "Let's have another one." Glaring hard at the cholo-wearing kid, Tweek let out a low growl before slamming the door in his face. "God, those Tuckers are